That music always gets me so hype.
Oh,
Hello.
like ready for a pachanga.
Hello, LEC community. Thank you so much for joining us for this season's Latinx Educator Nominee Spotlights. As you probably know, my name is Susana Elizarraz. I'm the Deputy Director of the Latinx Education Collaborative. We are working to create the conditions necessary for Latino student advancement. Of course, we cannot do that without the work that we do with and for our teachers. This is one of my favorite seasons of the year because it's Latinx Educator Award season. We've gotten nominees from all over the country, and I have the pleasure of being here with one of them, Lex Hernandez. Hello, nice to meet you. How are you?
Nice to meet you. I am wonderful. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. Like I said before we hopped on, Lex, I was like, I want to know all about you, but let's just wait and start recording. So let's jump in. Tell us about you. Who are you? Tell us your story and kind of your journey to where you are.
Perfect. So my name is Lex Hernandez. Officially is Alexander Hernandez. I am from the lovely southern border of Texas and Mexico, known as the Rio Grande Valley. And my journey with education has always been a sort of combination of compromise, but also an outlet to escape a reality. Um, Growing up as an emergent bilingual or English learner, I had to right away start living a kind of like a double life. My parents came from Mexico. Initially, they only knew Spanish, so that's where I started kind of figuring out the whole aspect of code switching. But it also gave me school and just the education in general gave me the outlet to escape my reality, living in lower class, having to only eat at school, having always hand me downs from my cousins, and I felt that my differences did not matter when I was in school. And then that compromise kept going until junior year, where I sadly had to decide to drop out because my family couldn't afford pay the bills. So I had to drop out of high school and live and work full time in McDonald's, which up to this day, even though people talk bad about uh, being a cashier, working at McDonald's, it was one of the most amazing opportunities that I had because it helped me realize the importance of education. So that's where the following year I had to have a crucial conversation with my parents of, hey, I need to go back to school. So which they eventually ended up uh, not accepting, but following through, and it helped me go back to school the following year as a senior. And even though I was able to catch up with my credits, I still the work ethic that I have demonstrated throughout those 4 years was shown and I guess valued by one particular college called Wabash College, which is in one of the only three all-guy private colleges in the United States for men. So that's how I ended up in the middle of nowhere of Indiana, which was a whole different world than the Rio Grande Valley, because I go from being in a hybrid bubble that is cemented by different type of inland checkpoints of having a mix. It's been like a hybrid culture and hybrid language. So that's my passion about bicultural code switching came into play. But then going in and realizing that, hey, I'm a minority. And even though I'm a minority in the middle of nowhere in Indiana, my work ethic demonstrated that I was valuable enough to get a full ride scholarship. So my relationship with during those 4 years was a love hate one, because I started noticing the impact that representation and just the value of education, and that no matter what type of background or who you are, education can be your biggest asset. So after that, I moved to Indianapolis to start teaching. I started teaching and started my alternative teaching program that eventually gave me my master's. And then I came back to Texas. So that was 2017. So I was in Indiana from 2012 to 2018, and then came back to Texas. After getting a taste of the city life, I was like, I'm not ready to come back uh, to lovely Rio Grande Valley, which was more of a rural type of region. And I started getting deeper into education from always from teaching computer science at elementary level during the day to teaching English language arts to high school students and then accelerated high school. Um, and it was, even though it was a long, hard days, those experiences were amazing because it taught me a lot, and it gave me that passion and curiosity that led me to my doctorate program at that I started right at the pandemic in curriculum and instruction with a focus in technology and bilingual education, and just seeing how even though the pandemic has impacted society, well, globally in a negative way, it has brought out many different type of tools that helps us connect with each other and help us kind of support each other and keep making those different pathways for future generations to come. So after the when the pandemic also hit, I came back to the Rio Grande Valley and have been here since then. I've been currently teaching AP Computer Science with Idea Public Schools, and I am close to finishing my dissertation. Hopefully, if I keep
Yay.
pushing through that writing process, I'll hopefully by the end of the year I'll be able to have it done and defended. So my journey has been kind of like a long circle,
Mhm.
starting in the valley, venturing out, and then coming back. And even though there's been hardships like any other, I'm grateful for the successes and for the falls and for the failures that I went through, because that has taught me uh, to be who I am and taught me how to make sure that students like me are accepted uh, in and out of the classroom.
Yeah. Uh, Thank you so much for sharing your story. And this is exactly why we asked this question. And
Hmm.
it's also, again, why it's one of my favorite times of the year, because
Hmm.
to hear people's stories and then to realize that you're now in the classroom, like you said, impacting people who may have a similar story, right? Whether it's a little part, right? If you have a
Hmm.
kiddo who's thinking about dropping out or who may, need to drop out to work for the family, or if you have someone who got a full ride scholarship, but it's on the other side of the country away from family, right? Like those
Hmm.
little elements about your story that your students can relate to, someone will be able to relate to. I
Hopefully.
love that we have the opportunity to put it out there.
Mhm.
Congratulations on
Thank
everything, on
you. Thank you.
um I mean, like you said, on the hardships, your doctorate, your master's. That's
Mhm.
amazing. Congratulations on everything.
Thank you. Yeah, and actually, that's one that kind of, on a side note, that kind of connects to one of the amazing activities I love to do on literally on the first day of school, which is we do our journey lines. And as my students are doing the journey lines, I emphasize, don't always focus on the positive, because sometimes that neutral and that negative has made you who you are in a better way in the long run. And especially that allows me to also kind of get to know them and as much as I can without any sense of judgment, any sense of, um, I guess, just to kind of help them find their voice and find that validation, and just letting them know, like, hey, this is a safe space from day one. This is a safe space of you being who you are, no matter whatever's happening outside of that classroom door. So,
Well, and I also love how intentional you were. You talked about the no judgment, right? I love how intentional you were with when you were talking about working at McDonald's, about how a lot of people are judgmental of, I mean, you hear it all the time, right? Do you
oh,
want to end up working at McDonald's? Do you want to work at McDonald's, right? This like very judgmental and negative and pessimistic way of looking at it. When for
yeah.
you, you talked about how it was, you know, it helped you support your family. It helped you learn work ethic. It helped, it was your first experiences, right?
Hmm.
being out in the world. And it also was like, okay, I got a taste of the world and I want a little bit more, right?
Hmm.
So to talk about it in this optimistic and positive way, I
Hmm.
very much appreciate that.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Yeah, of course. Well, you were nominated for Educator of the Year. Obviously, congratulations.
Thank
And
you. Yep, so
people
many.
are people are noticing your work. I'm sure you're having great impacts on your students and on your school building. How do you feel about that? How do you feel about being nominated?
I feel very honored, but also very anxious. Because this is a very prestigious award, but it's also I feel privileged to be able to that others are able to see my record, my contributions in and out of the classroom. Sometimes it feels like nobody's watching. That everything that I do, um, it seems very minimal, but getting getting this nomination shows that people do see the
Hmm.
hard work and dedication, and then people also see that the value that someone has and the passion that someone has to be able to keep on making that positive impact
Hmm.
in and out of the classrooms, and just to help keep on growing. And so this nomination is it's an amazing one, and I am very thankful for this opportunity.
Well, thank you for those kind words about the award, and it's actually why we do this because
Mhm,
Latino teachers in general don't get the recognition as often as they
mhm,
should. Unfortunately, as a society, an American society, we don't value teachers the way that we should. And then on top of that, we realize that being a Latinx teacher, being a Latino teacher,
mhm,
um, you often carry a load that's a little heavier, particularly if you serve students that are like you, because you're getting the immigration questions, you're getting the
oh yeah.
I don't speak English yet, can you help me? You're getting families come to your classroom, I'm sure, and asking for help. And so those things that as teachers we're very willing to do, but that don't get recognized because it's not in your job description. There is no metric tied to how many families asked for your help over the last year, right? And so
Mhm.
that's why we continue to do this. We think it's really important for you all to be recognized.
Thank you, and then thank you for giving us the opportunity and the platform to be able to explore different success or narratives, and just
Mhm.
seeing and just motivating each other,
Mhm.
whether getting the actual award or not. I'm pretty sure that the next person will be as amazing, and I can't wait to celebrate them as well, or vice versa, because eventually, like you said, we're so underrepresented at times that it
Mhm.
feels like nobody's there. But in
Mhm.
reality, there is a huge support system. It's just knowing where to find it.
Yeah. And that's the epitome of why we exist, right? When we started our work, it was just about not just about community, but it was about community, about bringing people together, and for teachers to see. We have people in our community who aren't educators, but
Hmm.
they know the importance of it. And so at our socials, at our happy hours, our live streams, you'll have people on there saying thank you, thank you, thank you, because they know the impact that teachers and that Latino teachers are making. So speaking of, first of all, I didn't realize I was talking to a tech expert when I like hopped on, because I'm like, do you know StreamYard? And because I'm not a tech expert, and here you are like all these tools that came out of COVID, and I'm like, oh,
Mhm.
okay, Lex knows all the things. I
but but to my credit, I it's a lot of playing around with it.
Yeah.
As I tell my students, as long as your device doesn't explode or completely like burn out on you, you're good. Just play around with it. That's how learning is. It's and that's one aspect of learning that I miss, that we
Mm,
tend to lose as we get deeper into education. That
mm,
whole play aspect.
mm,
Through play, we're able to learn more. Through play, we're able to explore and be successful and find errors. And I let my students know it's okay. It's okay if you fail. And it's okay if your program doesn't work. Now the goal is to figure out, okay, how can I fix it? It's all
mm,
about that getting up. And
mm.
that's always the fun part. just trying to figure out like that vulnerability, but also figuring out, okay, now that this happened, how can you get yourself back up and how can you fix it?
Mm,
That's I to my opinion, personally, I think that's where the true learning tends to happen.
I love that. I love that. I'll say one quick thing about that. I was having a conversation yesterday. Can you hear the beeping, by the way? No?
Yes,
Oh,
but
it's my son's it's my son's G2 pump. I'm sorry.
that's
It's
completely
gonna
fine.
have to
You're good.
I
No
may
worries.
call him over in a second so that I can turn it off. But Amado,
The perks,
um,
the perks of COVID.
yes,
Virtual
exactly.
learning.
Exactly. He's 3, so he's like in his own little world over there.
Mhm.
But I was talking to someone yesterday about the sparkle in kiddos' eyes in that preschool, kindergarten, first grade, right? When you walk next to them in the hallway and they're all like, hi, hi, hi,
Mhm.
and how that dies down. Obviously, we get older and we get a little more
Mhm.
self-conscious and stuff, but about being excited to be at school. And like you talk about that play and being excited about the playing and be excited about discovering things and breaking things and making mistakes and all of that. But we definitely tend to shut that down in schools as kiddos get older.
Mhm.
So our mission is to create the conditions necessary for Latino student advancement. You've talked a little bit about that impact that you're having and the experience of having your students, but what are your thoughts about how we can build the conditions necessary for Latino student advancement?
So the way there are different, I wish there was like a one solution all to be able to help the advancement of Latino X youth, but there are actually like several factors that are kind of like a piece of a puzzle that once you put in those pieces make the beautiful image of the proper uh, the beautiful image of creating
Conditions.
those pathways and conditions for our our Latinx youth. One of them is the access to quality education, and
Mm,
it starts from home to all the way to growing up. Even as adults, we tend to always think, "Oh, we already have our degree, we already know everything." But in reality, sometimes adults have no less than students. So just knowing that they have that quality education, but also access to the proper and the proper accommodations, the proper evaluations and support. Uh, from it. Also, just have creating that. Secondly, having that safe and supportive environment, both at home and at school, and letting our students know that hey, you are you are beautiful, and you are amazing. And I always make sure that every message that I send out, every announcement that I send out, either through Teams or through Remind, which is our communication platform with our families, that our students, even though some of them love to give us canas, they are still amazing. They make life and everyday uh, special because you will never be able to forget those moments. Um, Giving them opportunities to be able to challenge themselves, whether it's through leadership roles, whether it's to like just giving them the autonomy or the ability to play, to be able to explore that, because you just never know what type of amazing things come out of that play, especially if you give them a leadership role where they can explore, where they can fail but also be successful, and just seeing the type of engagement, uh, especially like civic engagement, because we always tend to forget that education transgresses the classroom door. Education happens in and out of the classroom. Education happens in the conversation with your comadre, compadre. Education happens everywhere. It's not just teacher oriented. So just giving those opportunities, and talking about those opportunities, just having that positive environment at times, because we always believe that just because you don't have a full positive support system doesn't mean that you can't be successful. In
mhm.
reality, that sadly wasn't always the case in growing up. But at the same time, I am still thankful for having them in my life, especially with family members that dealt with drugs and alcohol. I am still thankful for them because that showed me that there is a different pathway. That showed me that people, that everybody needs a support system, but that people always try to find that coping and escape, which came out a lot since when the pandemic hit, because that's when where people are like, whoa, okay, let me slow down, let me take a pause, and we start realizing our extra layers are coming into play because we're always in a run, and just making sure that our classroom and our instruction is culturally relevant, which has been a back and forth, especially with assessments, because a lot of the assessments are not tailored to our students. A lot of the assessments don't have the verbiage or the background knowledge that our students come from. So that already creates an inequity with our students, of showing them that, hey, your experiences don't matter, but in reality it does, because our experiences are what drives our learning, and our experiences are the things that gives us that point of reference. So I do believe all these like different factors of or pieces of the puzzle can reach help our Latinx youth reach the potential in making this world and this nation a much better place. And I can't wait just to keep on seeing the contributions a lot of our younger generations are coming with.
Yeah, I feel like we could write a whole book off of your answer, right? Like,
For
because
sure.
like I appreciate the thoughtfulness in your answer, because every answer you gave is so layered, right? When you talk about them having a safe place, we're an education nonprofit, but of course we're having conversation. Here I am with the TikTok trend. Of course we're having conversations about of course we're having conversations about access to healthcare, right? Of course
Mhm.
we're having conversations about access to language. Of course we're right, like all these, because if our families aren't safe, if they're not well resourced, if they're not right, then so
Mhm.
an example, we have digital literacy courses for our families, for our parents, and of course we do, because how do we expect parents to be more engaged, and schools expect that parent engagement when maybe I don't have an email address, maybe I don't have a computer, maybe I don't know how to use a computer. It's the coolest thing to be in classes with the senoras, right? And they're learning how a mouse pad works, right?
For sure.
So just everything that you talked about, but like there's so many layers up under all of that, and I think the system over overlooks that a lot,
Mhm.
right? It's just
For
like
sure
go to
does.
school, go to school, and like you said, standardized testing. And I very much appreciate your answer, and
Thank you.
I'm so proud to know that students have you. I thank you so much for your work. Thank you so much for all the work that you're doing. And last but not least, we realize that this work is not easy, especially if you show up as your full self every day and you kind of put in that extra effort. What is it that keeps you going through that?
So what keeps me going is just the constant reminders and knowing why I am here and why representation matters. Because even though my regions, the Rio Grande Valley, which is the southern border of Texas, um, people already have this depiction that the border is such a dangerous place, but in reality, it's not. The Rio Grande Valley is such a beautiful hybrid bubble where we explore bicultural, we explore biliteracy, code switching, literally from kinder pre-K or even before, and then just remembering that, hey, uh, I became who I am. My development was because I was considered as an outsider. I was invalidated. I always felt like I was never enough because I always fell into that in between category, instead of either or. My language was never proficient because I always used translanguaging. I always code switch, sometimes unconsciously, because that's how I grew up. Knowing that my skin was light enough to be considered white passing, but not dark enough. Not but dark enough that I always felt different, and that was something that came back and forth when I was in Indiana, and then ironically, it was until these past since the pandemic, 2021. That's where I discovered. That's where I finally realized that, um, because I always had that conflict of being fully able-bodied or disabled, came into play because of the thanks to the pandemic and thanks to my to virtual learning. I learned that I have ADD and ADHD. Last year, literally, uh, January 2023, I learned that I have high functioning autism, and just learning all these different things in such a late stage, um, kind of gives like that focal, like, oh well, now
Mhm.
that makes more sense. um or even knowing that, that still didn't stop me for completing from what I accomplishing or doing the things that I did. uh
Mhm.
Always trying to not only meet the expectations of school but also of everybody. um and even if I grew up in a low income household, that still didn't stop me of being where I am at the moment. Uh,
Mhm.
so it, to kind of like wrap it up, it's just knowing that whatever I'm doing, directly or indirectly, whether it's big or small, that I know that my students will are never are even if it's an hour a day, since I it's my class is an elective class that they
Mhm.
teach, that's only they meet daily,
Mhm.
um, that they are never gonna have to feel those emotions of being outcasted or invalidated, knowing that they are safe, knowing that they will eventually, even though, um, their their motivation to complete assessments, assignments, and things, that's a whole different ball game, is a struggle. But knowing that they are happy being in my classroom, they feel safe, they feel loved and cared for, no matter who they are or where they come from, and that eventually will create that ripple effect that can transgress generations and transgress whatever obstacles that comes up into it comes up in the future.
I love that. I love all of it. I like thank you so much for the passion that you give to this work. I know it's not easy.
Mhm.
There's a reason why teacher burnout is real. There's a reason why Latino teacher burnout is real, and it's because of the amount of care and intentionality that you put into this work. And so do know that you have a community behind you. You have the LEC supporting you, and people who will be watching this evening, who are rooting for you. And, if you ever need any resources or anything like that, and I know for a fact, if I'm ever in South Texas, I'm going to have to reach out. I'd
You
love to see
should.
yeah, I'd love to see your classroom. I'd love to bring you a cafecito or something.
Ooh.
If you're
And I
ever
will
in Kansas, what'd you say?
I was gonna say, and if you do end up coming, I will gladly take you to my dad's taqueria, and we'll have some amazing tacos. And by then, I will hopefully be, out of my transitional diet because I just had, gastric bypass
Okay,
2 weeks
okay.
ago. So by that time, hopefully, I'll be able to eat solids and we'll tack those tacos.
Yes. Okay. Yeah, ya dijiste. If you're ever in Kansas City, you have a home here. If you're ever in the Midwest, let me know. Thank you so much for spending time with us today, and thank you for sharing your story. I appreciate you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Ms. Susana. I
Yeah.
really appreciate the opportunity. It was
Yeah.
amazing talking to you and getting to explore the different areas and just our organization in general. Your organization is amazing, and like, so can't wait to see what else to come.
Yeah, thank you. Hang tight for a little bit. I'm gonna wrap us up, and then we could chat a little bit. Thank
Awesome.
you,
Thank you.
community.